afternoon, YouTube. How are you this afternoon? I am pretty good. It is about 6:30 Central Time, and I'm here in North Little Rock on the Maverick campus. It is day 3 of MIT training, and today was a really good day. It was a long day. We started about 8 o'clock this morning and ran till roughly 5:30. It was a long day. There wasn't a lot of subjects covered, but there was a lot of material covered, if that makes any sense. The subjects that we talked about had a lot of meat and potatoes to it, I guess you could say. As you can see, I'm actually sitting in the passenger seat today, and I'm doing that because I'm trying to get used to this seat, because I'm probably going to be spending a lot of time in it. Once I start getting students. I'm not really sure when I'm going to get my first one. I'm probably going to be next week. Might be this week. It all depends on whether or not they're ready or not to give me one. Might be next week. But today's discussions, were pretty good and pretty comprehensive. Like the other days, this morning we started off with a recap of the staff meeting that they have in the training center at 7:30 in the morning. I've talked about that some on my blogs when I was instructing in the training center about those staff meetings. We in MIT go over those, or they go over with the guys in the MIT, I should say. Mostly so we understand how the training department works, and they track each individual student. Their progress from the date of arrival on the Sunday of orientation through the end of their business unit training. Everything is tracked on progress, on how their accomplishments, any challenges they have, and all that stuff is recorded and kept in records for the training department. And after a year, those records are gotten rid of, other than the fact that whether they were successful or not on certain things. Once that was done, we touched a little bit more on the comfort zone stuff from yesterday, just kind of real quick recap, and then we moved on into what's called SDI personality training. And really, the SDI personality matrix is a method of determining what type of personality someone is. And it's really good from an instructor or training point of view, because not only does the profiling matrix allow you to understand what kind of personality type you are, and it's not A or B or C or whatever. They're really color codes. It's either blue, which are really kind of passive, compassionate people who give a lot and care and things like that, and green people who are very analytical and logic driven, and or keep to themselves, or introverted, and they want to learn on their own pace and things like that. And red, which are people who are kind of get it done, more aggressive type of people, not necessarily angry, but they can be, and they're real straightforward in getting things done and stuff like that. Part of our discussions today was helping to determine where we are in the color wheel, so to speak, or whether we're kind of right in the middle. What's called a hub, which has the qualities of everybody. And hub people are generally very rare. Someone just parked next to me and kind of lost some of my light. There we go. I personally am I'm a green with red leanings, because I have I'm real analytical. I'm real OCD about certain things. I like structure, I like control and things like that, but I also have what's called a short fuse. It takes a lot to get me really upset and mad, but when it happens, and which is something I've talked about in other videos, something I have to work on to consciously control. Once we kind of figured out where we're at in it, we learned about how to teach from that perspective to the rest of the wheel, whether it's us teaching someone who's very red or someone that's very blue, green, what kind of teaching method works best for dealing with those personality types. Nothing works for everybody. You have a toolbox of training tools, and methods, and you're going to use some tools for one type of person, some tools for other types of people, and no two people are going to require the same methodology or same teaching types. And a lot of today's discussions, up through lunch and even a little bit after lunch, really was all about that. It was really good discussions. It gives the instructors a real good foundation for determining how to judge the students, to determine what kind of personality they are, how to get to know them, and how to get them in their best methods. I'll give you a perfect example. Someone who's blue really works a lot off of positivity and a lot of hands-on, not hands-on, but a lot of verbal discussions and being shown and things like that. That's really how they learn the best. Green people have a tendency that they want, and I'm this way, hand me a book, let me see what I need to know, and then maybe give me some hands-on time with whatever it is, and I'll figure it out. You can coach me along, but don't ride me on it. Red people generally just give it to me and let me figure it out, with my bare hands, that kind of thing. There's a lot of people like that in the world, and those guys, every one of the three has their challenges, because it all depends on what type of personality the trainer is. We also talked about the typical job types relating to those color wheels, who does best, what kind of personalities work in the best kinds of fields. You're going to have, different types of personalities are great. Blue people are very compassionate. They're really good nurses and people who, caregivers. But, a green person could be a really, really good, surgeon who does very detailed and excellent work. Okay, but a red person would be the kind of surgeon that takes a lot of risks, like trauma surgeons and things like that. They work in the risky parts of things, and that can be taken to almost any job field. Truck drivers in general, in history, have been more blue to green type of people, but we're starting to see in this industry more like me, more green to red, or even red. People, go-getters, but don't need a lot of hand holding, and it's a very complicated subject, and I'd love to talk about it a lot, but I don't want to burn up a lot of time in the video. But basically, like I said, the all morning was really dealing with personalities, how to identify them, how to teach to them the best ways or ideas, because there is no best way. Because even if someone is like me, is a green to red, I like not only to have the materials given to me and be able to learn it on my own, but I also like to get my hands on it and just figure it out. And that's when I'm not to say I don't have any blue or any compassion or giving in me. I do have some, but it's not the bulk of my personality makeup. Once we moved on from that after lunch, we started talking about training tools themselves, or at least teaching techniques. How are we going to teach? Whether we're going to use different forms of communication, where we listen in verbal and non-verbal teaching methods, demonstration types of demonstrating, or what's called passive or phantom teaching, where we use scenario-based education, where hey, this is going on, how would you deal with that? Or this has happened, say this happens, and this is the steps you need to follow. Also, observational teaching. Now we observe students while they're doing things, and way to follow up and educate based on observation and mistakes. And then practical application stuff, getting in there and just doing the meat of the work. There's also discussionary or lecture based training. And a lot of people, some people thrive on that. A majority of people don't. We also moved on to tools, the actual tools that we have. I'm not going to list them all. We have lots of things to help us. We have manuals. We have the multimedia system in the OmniTrax system. We have the notes the students take. We have our own teaching materials. There are manuals and videos and pamphlets, and there's lots of other tools like applications for smartphones or tablets, mapping, GPS devices, all these. There's just tons and tons of things out there that enables us to be able to pass on knowledge and give some best practices to the students as they're coming through. Finally, at the end of the day, we actually talked about HR related issues, things that can happen in the truck between two people, guidelines and boundaries and procedures that the company has put in place to protect not only the student but also the instructor on how things function inside this roughly 7 by 8 foot box, maybe 10 feet, whatever the dimensions are inside, because over the course, when you're in that much of a confined space over a long period of time, conflicts can and potentially will happen, and what to do about those things and how to stop them before they ever become an issue. Things like personal privacy, personal space, likes and dislikes, simple things like what's played on the radio, because the kind of music that I like, another person won't like, and then the kind of music they like, I may not care for, that kind of thing. So how to deal with those kinds of situations, how to deal with personal hygiene issues such as restroom breaks, showering, changing clothes, nighttime sleeping habits, all this kind of stuff. And all great information. I've got a slew of notes on all these things, and these are all things I need to incorporate into my training program and things that I need to think about and deal with. Finally, we talked about expectations and syllabuses, our creation, because we have to create our own lesson plans, our own syllabus, guidelines on how we're going to progress over the course of the training program, when we're going to, how we're going to start off, we're going to let them start right off driving, or we're going to give them a few days to decompress after all the stuff they've been through, what kind of responsibilities we're going to give them from the beginning, up to the penultimate, which generally should be the last week of training, where for me, in this particular I'm sitting in this seat from start to finish, just kind of riding along as a passenger, and the student over here in the driver's seat is handling everything from trip planning, doing all the driving, doing all the loading, doing all the securing, doing all the tarping, handling all the customers. I mean, basically the last week is they need to run the truck to prove that they're going to be able to do it on their own once they get out. Simple enough stuff, but it's all very complicated. There's a lot to it. I will freely admit that when I road trained with other companies, there was not this much forethought and not this much planning put into it. I loved my road trainer when I started driving. He was a great guy. We were really good friends for the best part of 6 or 7 years. Even after I left that company, we still talked regularly, at least once a week. It tapered off over time because he's much older than me, but he stayed at that company, and I think recently he celebrated his 12th anniversary or something, like 10, 12 years, and but he had been driving for 20, 25 years. And when we got in the very first time, when I started, we left the Fort Worth terminal and drove about 2 hours up to Wichita Falls. And once we were in Wichita Falls, after that 2 hours of just him and me talking, getting there, he jumped out of the driver's seat, jumped in the passenger seat, and I got in the driver's seat and drove. And I drove the rest of the way, pretty much the rest of the way. I drove all the way up to Lamar, Colorado, with him just sitting in the seat and talking and giving me instruction. I mean, granted, at the time he told me straight up, he said, "You're probably one of the most natural truck drivers I've ever known." He wanted to get me out of the truck and put me in my own truck after a week, but of course the company wouldn't. I ended up lasting 2 weeks before I got my own truck when it's supposed to have been 6. I was an anomaly, okay? And there are those out there. Here at Maverick, a lot of guys come in and they say, okay, yeah, I got to go through orientation, and I go through training, business unit training, then I get on the truck, I'm there for 21 days. That's going to be hard. Then I get my own truck. 21 days, if you're watching this and you're thinking about coming here, is the minimum. There are certain criteria that you have to meet based on your training packet, because you will get one when you come out of student training and you come to the student truck, of things that must be accomplished. Okay, and it takes longer. For the average takes 4 to 4.5 weeks to be 4 to 5 weeks. 4.5 is the average to be able to graduate from the truck to go to final evals. Some people take longer, up to 6 weeks. It can take a lot longer than that. I'm not really sure if there's an upper limit. I think I heard once, and I haven't confirmed it, and I really didn't think about it, but 8 weeks is, I think, the maximum before it's things really change. But because some people get this job quickly, some people don't, some people are just on the average, because that's where most people are. They're your exceptional people, and they're your below average people, and then there's everyone else, the average. Okay. So today was a great day. I learned a lot, and tomorrow we're covering the actual student packaging and a bunch of other stuff. I don't have a complete list of what we're supposed to talk about tomorrow, but one of the things that we will be talking about is the student training materials that they're going to be bringing onto the truck that we have to deal with. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the end of this class. Tomorrow's Wednesday, it's day 4, and then Thursday we have a little bit, then we're turned over to operations, and we find out when we're going to get our first student. So it's a great time. I'm really, really excited, and I'm hoping that anybody that comes through my truck is going to be excited. It's going to be a challenge, but it's going to be fun, I hope. I want to make my goals for having students on this truck is not only to pass on my knowledge and my experience, but to get people in here and teach them that this job is hard work, but it can be a lot of fun. And I want to have a lot of fun with my students. I'm hoping that I have the ability to keep them at ease, keep them in their comfort zone, and pass on the knowledge that they need to know so they can make this a profitable career for themselves and their family. So until tomorrow, I hope you have a great evening. So keep the shiny side up. 73s. See ya.